So on today, what we want to talk about is becoming what's required. That's what we need to look at. We need to become what's required. If you're trying to achieve something in life, if you're trying to accomplish something, you're going to have to become what's required. I heard somebody say many years ago, if you want something you never had, you're going to have to do something you've never done. And that's what today's mastermind class is about. You have to ask yourself this question: who must I become for my business to reach the next level? You have to ask yourself that particular question. What is it that I have to do so that I can scale my business and so that I can go to the next level? And it's amazing because as agents, we talk about numbers all the time. We talk about market appreciation and equity and cash flow and leverage and building wealth for our clients. But let's shift the focus for a moment and let's look at the single most valuable asset in our entire businesses. It's the single most asset in your business. It's the single most asset that's valuable in my business. And it's not one that follows a traditional balance sheet. It's not about numbers. Your greatest asset is you. That's who your greatest asset is. Before you think about scaling a performer or a portfolio, before you think about scaling a team, before you think about increasing your CRM or scaling your business, make sure you first increase your capacity. And that's what we got to be about. We have to make sure. That's why I enjoy in life conferences and conventions and various things, EXPCon and various meetings, because it allows me to increase my capacity. That's why I like Audible and Speedify and those particular things to be able to absorb books so quickly. Why? Because it allows me to increase my capacity. That's why not only do I get online to social media just to post, but I spend my time reading and reviewing posts of those that are already where I'm trying to go. Now, see, some folks get on social media and they look at all of the funny videos and they spend all of their time just laughing. There's no way you can scale your business and make money laughing. But you can scale your business and make money if you are willing to look at others that are doing what you are already doing. Now, let me tell you what happens with most agents. They fall into the dangerous trap. You say, what's the dangerous trap? I call it a trap because of the fact what happens is whenever production stalls, whenever it slows down for 1 or 2 months, you know what they immediately do? They look outwardly. That's what average agents do. They look outside. You know, people just in life do that. You ever hear people, they have what we call the victim mentality. Whenever something's going wrong, they blame the administration, they blame their parents, they blame the children, they blame the society, they blame another man or another woman or the race. Sometimes the best thing to do in life is to immediately look inside. Don't go out and buy some shiny new technology. Just because you're not selling for the last 2 months doesn't mean you need to go from an iPhone 14 to an iPhone 17. It doesn't mean you need to subscribe to the most expensive lead generation platforms or reskin your marketing. In other words, replace one marketing way with another marketing way. That's not what top producers do. We understand that there's things we need to do with ourselves. We understand that throwing money at lead gen is a low capacity type of action. It's high waste. You see that bucket is just bleeding out. It's just got your money and it's bleeding all out because that's what happens. The only thing going out to get more lead generation does is creates a capacity bottleneck. It's just more expensive. You're just putting more money out. You're just bleeding yourself. That's not a cash cow. you are literally bleeding yourself of all of your income. I tell you what top producers do. We invest in human capital. We invest in ourselves. We intentionally invest in something that's going to make us better. You see a little steps of list right there. We invest in mindset. We invest in skills. We invest in seminars and systems. We invest in conventions and leadership. We invest in high capacity, sustainable growth. That's what we invest in because we understand that that's what's going to sustain us through all 12 months of the year. We invest in the person running the business. We just don't run and invest in the business because you know people that can invest in the business and the business still fail. Because there's two ways a business can fail, probably many other ways, but there's at least two ways. You can just be unable to generate business, and it fails because of the fact you can never generate enough cash flow. But then you can have businesses that are able to generate business and you have so much capacity before you, but you just don't know what to do with it. So it fails because of lack of customer service, lack of response, lack of being able to keep up with your own growth because you grew the business, but you never grew the person that was running the business. And I want you to know that a low capacity system is going to always cost you more than you can imagine. You're going to constantly see money just draining out of you, flying away. Some folks use the analogy, holes in your pocket. And you don't want to have holes in your pocket. You want to sustain. And the best way to do that is to become a person that understands how to invest in themselves. I'm going to give you three on today. The first one I want you to look at is investing in your time. It's so important that you don't jump to your CRM first. Doesn't matter which CRM you have. That's not the first place you need to jump. You need to jump right into your time. Some people jump into their sphere. And that's great. You can have a lot of folks you can talk to. You can jump right into your brand. And maybe you have a great social media brand, but it's your time. You need to invest in your time. You need to set up all of the right boundaries. You need to set up all of the right limitations. You need to set you up a schedule that produces for you. Every person that's alive, no matter what their gender is, no matter what their race is, no matter where they're geographically located, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. However, everyone does not value their hours the same. You have to look at your economic value and see how you're going to spend your hours. Your hours have to be vitally important to you, because I want to tell you, if you spend 1 hour actively prospecting, that's going to be totally different than if you spend 1 hour scrolling social media. Once again, you'll laugh a lot more scrolling social media, but you'll produce a lot more prospecting. Just the other week, I've been doing a lot of prospecting myself. And as I prospect, guess what? More and more people come. I know we don't like the phone calls. I know that we don't like the cold calls, the warm calls. At most, we may like the hot calls because of the fact we get to hear immediate gratification that they're ready to buy, they're ready to sell. But that's not the typical. That's not the normal. The normal are warm calls or either cold calls. So you have to make up in your mind how you're going to go about it. Having a listing appointment and spending your hour that way is going to yield a higher return than reorganizing your email inbox for the third time. sitting there just looking at how you want to flag your emails and what's important and what's not important. Before you spend another dollar trying to grow your business, I need you to audit where you're spending all of your hours at. I need you to look at your true primary asset. And then I need you to start blocking your time. I need you to look at it. Look at that big old circle. I need you from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock. And I know some agents, you may be part-time, so you have to adjust the hours based upon your work schedule for full-time work. But agents, at least 2 hours a day, you need to prospect. You need to force yourself. Yes, you can go out and you can get your VAs. You can go out and you can get others, assistants and non-licensed assistants to help you. But first and foremost, you should take on the responsibility yourself to prospect for 2 hours. Then spend 2 hours following up. Because if you get someone and they seem energized, but if you never walk back around to them, you just introduce them to the world of being cared for by an agent. But if you're no longer caring for them, they're going to find another agent. You introduce them to what it's like to have an agent call you, but then they're going to chase another agent down if you're not willing to follow up with them. And then let your evenings, and once again, you have to judge this off of your schedule, but let your evening times, the evening, the late afternoon, let that be a time of appointments. You ought to celebrate when you can say, I have 3 appointments today. I have 5 appointments this week. But you can't stop there. Your agent's day cannot stop if you want to be a top producer, because after you do prospecting and follow up and appointments, you have to concentrate on skill development. You have to concentrate on skill development. You have to have a few classes going on. You have to have, and some folks, they do it to have the little initials and the certifications behind their name, and that's great. But first and foremost, do it so that you can increase your capacity, so that you can invest in yourself. A lot of times that just means changing what you look at on social media. There's so many great videos about improving your skill as a real estate agent that you could spend time just soaking in. I know people talking about binge watching on the various streaming apps, and you look at television shows and do the same identical thing, but do it with the great agents of our time, and then go back and do it with the great agents of old. Spend your time just thinking about your craft. They tell me that when Michael Jordan was coming up, you couldn't separate that boy from a basketball. Every time you see him, he got an old basketball under his arm. And he didn't do the best when he was in high school and going into college. Matter of fact, his coach told him, I don't know if this is going to always be what you are going to be. Now, I know there's a great debate, but I think that Jordan is one of the greatest. And that's because he never forsook his craft. He kept it always near him. That's how we have to be as agents. We have to spend more time thinking about who we are and what we want to accomplish every morning early before you can talk to anyone, because you shouldn't be calling people until maybe at the earliest 8 o'clock. Many times they push it to 9 o'clock, but during the early hours, that's where you can get your administration together. That's where you can get your operations together. And then your day starts again. In other words, you have to invest in your time, and you have to protect those blocks. You have to protect those times of your day so that you can make the most out of your day. Now, here's just a simple matrix. Going from low to high on the left side, vertical is urgency. But then going on the horizontal, the bottom, low to high, value. And there's 4 types of things you can do. in the very bottom left corner, you can just do low urgency, low value things. And I don't mean to hurt any agent's feelings, but that's where most agents hang out. For whatever reason, that's where they hang out. They hang out in the low urgency and the low value things. They sit around and they scroll social media just for an entertainment. They always rearranging their emails. They wake up always just wanting to just see who called and see what texts are there. You know, it's always, I guess, feeding the who's important on their list. You know, they feeding themselves by saying I'm important, and we have to stay away from that. Then you have those that consider to be high urgency. I'm going vertical now, but still on the left side, but it's still low value. Stay away from those, because of the fact, just because it seems urgent doesn't mean that it's high value. You know, there's a lot of, I got to get back to them. I got to show this house, man. They called me and I need to show this rental, and they called me, and once again, you're feeding your own ego. This top producers, you learn quickly not to feed your own ego in reality. We may talk a ego talk, but we don't feed it in reality. Those are low value, even though they seem so urgent. No. Then on the bottom again, you have low urgency, but high value. Now, if you can't be the one that's highlighted in green, this is where you at least could rest at. It has low urgency, but if you do them, high value. Now, let me give you a good example of low urgency, but high value. You call 911. I think that's universally the number of emergency. And they say, what? But if this is not an emergency, but you do have a need for a responder, and then they give you a different number to call. So they wasn't reducing the value of why you was calling. They was just saying, if it was not high urgency, this is a better number to call, because this line is only for high urgency emergencies, 911. And there's going to be some things that may not be urgent, but you should do on a regular basis. There's some things you should practice on a regular basis, because in the long run, the value is going to be great. Tell you, it's not urgent, but you ought to have a book in your ear. You ought to be reading one, whatever your choice is. Some folks like the Audible to listen. Some folks actually like to read. It's not high urgency, but you ought to have it in your ear. It's not high urgency to say you have to go every week or that you have to go right now, but you should have the next conferences, the next team building, the next conventions, the next in real time conferences. You ought to have that in front of you, because it's low urgency, but the value you gain from it is out of this world. Now, the last one is when you go high on the urgency vertically and you go high horizontally on the value. Something that's high urgency and high value. Well, let me list them all. It's the very same things we looked at that you should be doing all day, every day. All day, every day. All day, every day. Sometimes I like to say 362 days a year, 52 weeks, 12 months, all day, every day. You ought to be prospecting. You ought to have lead follow-up. If you're not doing that on a regular, it doesn't matter if you're in production or agent attraction, you're not getting anywhere. That's what you do. This is the name of the game. Then you ought to be having face-to-face appointments, because if you do that first point correctly, this number two comes automatically. You're going to have appointments. You ought to have live contract negotiations. Yeah, if you're having appointments, that means that you're going to have offers to write. You're going to have people to work with, and you're going to be negotiating, whether it's for sharing about a listing, sharing about buying, renting, talking to an agent about the benefits and explaining EXP, you're going to have to understand that there's time for contract negotiation. That's high value. That's high urgency. And then here go another one, what we're talking about today, deliberate, intentional, on purpose, skill development. You ought to lead. That's why I get nervous of agents that don't have no time at all for mastermind classes. And I do know that sometimes with them being during the day, for many of them, it can go against some of the things you're trying to do that I just talked about. But you have to make time for mastermind classes. There's a class all over the place. Brokerages offer opportunities. You have to deliberately increase your skills. It is very important because I want you to understand something. If it doesn't belong, let me say it this way. If it's not driving your business to grow, it shouldn't be in your top main line. You know, on Monday night, you have primetime football. Every team doesn't get to go to prime time. Every activity in your life as a realtor, a real estate agent, shouldn't go to prime time. You have to pick and choose what's going to be high urgency and what's going to be high value. That is so important that you look at that. Let's go to pillar number 2. After you have invested in your time, and make sure you block out all of your time. Time blocking is what they call it. Now it's time to invest in your skills. You have to make up in your mind that you invest in your skills. Now, across the bottom of this slide here, there's about 6 things that I've listed. And these are the things that you have to invest in, getting better at. The first thing, buyer consultations. You have to become better at how to consult with your buyers, how to convert customers to clients, listing appointments. You have to become better at winning listings. It's one thing getting an interview, but if you are one of 3 agents and you're not the one that wins the listing, then you have to get better. These, when you start asking me, well, what should I have training on? Where should I go? What should I be learning? This is what you should be learning. These are the skills you need to produce, to become a top producer. So these are the skills you want to learn. Objection handling. Then just sitting in the back, just always telling people you don't have no confidence and you're nervous and just saying it as if it's something to boast about, that's not going to get you very far. But if you're willing to get on the line and to role model and to role play, and you're willing to go back and forth and learn the actual ways to respond to objections, responding to what, can't you go lower? Responding to, well, my cousin is an agent, responding to where my brokerage gives me 100% commission. You have to learn how to respond appropriately. These are skills that, as you look at that chisel in the spiritual world, iron sharpens iron. You see it there. As you sharpen yourself, your earning capacity increases. You got to be a negotiator. If you can't even negotiate your commission at the top of a listing appointment, your commission to your buyer, how can you convince that buyer that you can negotiate on their behalf? If you can't negotiate on your behalf, you got to increase that capacity. Market explanation. You got to know your market. If you say that you're in this market, you better know it on the front and the back of your hand, as folks have said. You have to understand. That means that you got to check the stats on a regular basis. You have to know what your market is. That's why some agents, they get lost because your market is too big. If something is too big for you to handle it, maybe you need to reduce it a little bit. You can't eat an elephant all in one bite. So you have to do it one bite at a time. Well, take that one bite and let that be your area and become the expert of that area. Then, after you get a handle on that, if you want to add another area, add another area. But don't say you're the expert of this large area and you're not the expert of none of it. No, you have to grow. You have to be going and reading the numbers and looking at the marking and studying what the market is doing. Then you got to increase your ability to ask for business. You know how many shy agents there are? Do you know how many shy people there are? I got some thoughts in mind, man, where I've been able to do what others have not been able to do just because I was willing to ask if I could do it. You have to. Would you like to sell your house? I would love to be your agent. Are you looking to buy? I would love to show you some homes in the communities that you're looking at. Your earning capacity will rise when your skill capacity rises. It is so important that you get and grasp that your first investment has to be you. That's your first investment. You cannot do anything else first. You have to look at you. So often we talk about doing a core competency audit. That's just where you just sit back and you actually ask yourself, what's my strong points? Out of those 6 things, and I could add 7 more. Because if you're an agent attracting agent, then you got to add that in. How do I do with agent attraction? How do I do with buyer consults? How do I do with negotiations? Be honest with yourself. And when you're honest with yourself, then you know exactly where you need to improve. Now, this is what you do quarterly. And this is something that I'm putting together for my particular team. And this is something that you should do even if you're on a team or if you're a solo agent. This is what you need to do. You need to have a quarterly skill sharpener going on every 90 days. You yourself, me, myself, and I, you as an individual should select one skill and hone in on that skill for 90 days. You need to hone in on it. It could be, I hadn't talked about on quarter 2, presentations. Yeah, maybe you're not the one that gives presentations. Maybe you're not familiar with just talking or you've always been shy. You got to take the time to study how to give presentations, how to present. You got to study for 90 days, objection. Tell yourself that's going to be my skill. For the next 90 days, for at least an hour a day, I'm going to, if I'm just sitting down and I may be sitting on the couch resting after a long day, I'm just going to now, see, what you don't do on social media is just open up one of those social media apps and just swipe. That's just giving you all of the foolishness of the day. No, what you do is you purposely type in what you're looking for. Type in objection handling, and then the system will bring you all of the videos out there on objection handling. And then you sit and you watch and you pick and choose the ones that will benefit you. And you swipe through those. Don't swipe just through social media. Not only is that killing your algorithm, but it's killing your skill development. You want to become one for 90 days. And if you don't do that, go out and get a book, several books on the subject you're doing that quarter. Then after you do that quarter, you go to the next quarter. And then after that, then the next year, you may need to revisit ones you've done before. You don't do something one time and be done with it. No, you have to revisit it on a regular basis. That's something we need to do on a regular basis. Top producers do not try to master everything at once. We break it down. And we break it down based upon our core competence audit. We break it down based upon what we have honestly shared with ourselves on what is most important. Now, skill number one, investment number one, asset number one, invest in your time. 2, invest in your skill. 3, if you're going to get it, invest in your mind. Make sure you building your mindset. What you know determines what you're capable of recognizing in the marketplace. If you have a small mind, small thought process, a small attitude, you're going to miss a lot that's right before you. Imagine sending 2 different agents into the exact same neighborhood. Same neighborhood. The first agent sees quiet streets, slow turnover, and a stagnant market. But the second agent, who has invested heavily in their market knowledge, that agent sees it differently. That agent sees investment opportunities. That agent sees zoning changes that's about to come. That agent is looking at the same neighborhood, but they can spot things that's different. They see potential that the other agent doesn't see. Why? Because they've trained their mindset. They have trained their minds. That's why you've seen 2 people walk into an old building that needs a lot of work. And you know, one person walks in and they see a little mold on the walls, and they may see a dead mouse in the corner, and they see look like some roaches could be. So either they are still there, or either the sign that they were there are there, the discoloration on the doors and various things. One person walks right in and they walk right out. You try to tell them that the place has been on the market for several days, several months, nearly years. And you try to tell them that the seller is motivated. You try to tell them, but their minds are not enlarged. They walk in, they walk out. But you take somebody that knows, someone with a invested mindset, they'll walk into that same place. They know you can get the mouse off the floor. They know you can get rid of the roaches and the discoloration. They understand that mold remediation is real and is not as costly as folks try to say that it is. They understand because they invested in their mindset to be able to understand matters like that. What are you investing your mindset in? I've heard agents say, "Oh, I can't take that on. That's too much complications for that property. I like to deal with single family homes. I'm not going to deal with no duplexes or no multifamilies." Why not? Train your mind so that you can be comfortable, so that you can become an expert in your field, so that you can recognize what's before you, so that you don't miss opportunities any longer. You know, the market may stay the same, but the mind looking at it can change everything. The market, you know, I say it all the time. When in a stagnant market or when production slows down, my mind does not slow down. I'm already thinking about what I'm going to be getting together. So when the market picks back up, I'm ready. I'm looking at things I can do with the market is down. I can train more agents. I can influence more agents. There's so much that you can do so that you can continue to go. There's 2 ways you can see that glass. It's half something. How you going to see it? You going to see it half empty? Or are you going to see it half full? Make up in your mind that you're going to invest in your mind. Once again, in the spiritual world, there's a statement that says, "As a man thinketh, so is he." If that's true, you are what your mindset is. How well have you been treating your mindset? How well have you been feeding it? the joke I always hear is, I know you've been feeding your stomach, but have you been feeding your mind? How would you know that I feed my stomach? I can look at you almost and tell that you eat and that you look kind of healthy, that you're feeding your stomach. But I can listen to you and watch how you carry yourself in the field or industry you're in and tell whether or not you're feeding your mindset. I can read your posts. I can observe your videos. I can watch your stats and your numbers. We can discuss your GCI. That's going to tell me whether you're feeding your mindset, because all of those things, they give off hints. They give off clues on a regular basis. Let me begin to close by just saying, I want you to build what I call a knowledge shield. And the reason why I call it a knowledge shield is because of the fact, you know what Captain America does. Captain America, he puts up his shield to protect anything coming against him. This is how you can protect yourself as an agent of anything that's coming against you, any lean season, any slow season. Anytime the market, I heard people say, where the market's going to change, it looked like we're going back to '08 and this and that, and the bubble may. This is how agents protect ourselves. We understand, one, the market, so we don't get distracted by what's just in the news. We understand business literacy. We know how to handle a business. We know how to run a business, and we do it with systems, so that we can save time, stress, energy, and money. That's why we operate with systems, but also we increase our mindsets so that we can begin to build several streams of revenue. Usually when you have several streams of something, not all of them cut off at the same time, because intelligent people don't allow all of the streams to come from the same pond. No, you have several streams set up, several ponds set up. So if one slows down, you're still getting income coming in. You have to be willing to build yourself a knowledge shield. Your business will never outgrow your thinking. It won't happen. Your business would never outgrow your thinking. You have to make up in your mind that I'm going to build my thinking. I'm going to increase my mindset. I'm going to deliberately time block so that I can build my skills and increase my mindset and just have a good attitude. If you walk around and feel like you're going to be defeated, if you walk around and feel as if that this business of real estate is not going to kick off for you, it's not. But if you walk around and determine that I'm going to make this happen, I'm going to ensure that this happens for me, I believe it will happen. Now, I talked about what to do every 90 days, but here's a workshop for you. Every day for 15 minutes. Now, I look at stuff now that talk about men. We could, in 7 minutes, we can do a workout. Ladies, they say 10 minutes for you. Well, here's a workout of the mind. You need to, every 15 minutes a day, you need to audit your top time wasters. You need to take time and sit back and be honest with yourself. What is wasting my time every day? And I know for a fact, for me, there was a season that it was social media, man. There was time I just enjoyed looking at the foolishness. I liked the laughing and some of the crazy and just whatever way strange stuff. No, that's a time waster, because it made me laugh, but it never put my money in my pocket. It never made me a better agent. So you need to audit yourself. Secondly, You need to select those 90 days. Take 15 minutes right now and select. You say, well, I know what I'm going to do for myself for the next 90 days. All right. Then start thinking about the next 90 days. And then, all right, then think about the next 90 days. Always thinking. And then lastly, schedule 15 minutes of daily study every day. Use time to, after you do your audit, after you select and know what your 90-day skill focus is going to be, just study, just listen, just read, just make yourself more intelligent, wiser. Fill yourself with knowledge. I do believe in going to in-life seminars and conventions. That doesn't change. But I also believe every day, because of social media, because of technology, they usually put the greatest clips from those types of conventions and meetings on social media. Go through, start building up a list of practitioners that are worth listening to. Everybody that talks real estate is not worth listening to. It is so important that you do that. It is so, so important that you make up in your mind that you're going to do that. And if you do, you will find that your real estate business will take off.